Hey guys, I got a grin on my face because of what I'm about to react to. I haven't seen it. It's a gift from funRonni. Thank you, Ronnie, for this gift. It's a documentary, and one about stories about Ernest Tubb. And I just got finished doing a 4-part bio of Ernest Tubb, and it was absolutely fascinating. He had such an impact on country music, one of the unheralded, not completely unheralded, but traditional and traditional country artists. And nowadays, with bro country and such, people have kind of lost track of them. But absolutely one of the most impactful artists in earlier country. And now we've got stories about Ernest Tubb. So let's get into this one. This is going into my documentary series playlist. I have, I don't know, I have 6 or 7, maybe 8 or 10 playlists, and one of which is titled Documentaries. This is going in it. All right, here we go.
Somebody that meant a lot to everybody in this room was Justin's dad.
I remember when he first came to the Opry. I remember listening to him while I was still in Fort Worth on a radio, having to hold the wire so it would come in louder, and hearing him sing on the Opry in late 42 and early 43.
Wasn't he the first person to use an electric guitar on the Opry?
As far as I know, he was. He was working with Pee Wee King. He and Eddie Arnold both, I think, were vocalists, or were working with Pee Wee's band, because they were both booked by Joe L. Frank, who was Pee Wee's father-in-law. And but the story that Daddy told me, and that I've heard him repeat before, is that Judge Hay didn't like the electric guitar, and he said, "Well, Judge Hay," he said, "I'm doing that so they'll sound like my records." And the judge said, "Well, we're not too much interested in records around here." The Opry was the big thing, and the radio show, you know. But anyway, he let him use it, and he later came to him and said, "Well, you were right. It does make it better for you." So, but the story goes, and I think Ronnie brought this out in the book, that he brought that honky-tonk sound. And the reason he used electric guitar was because what was big in Texas was the honky-tonks and the dance halls, and you could not hear the music over the people talking and laughing and joking and dancing. So they had to electrify the instruments, as Bob Wills, I think, had first done, so they could be heard over the din of the people having a good time at the honky-tonk.
Justin, when did Jimmy and Leon Short join him?
They joined him. They were with him before he came here in late 42. He officially joined, I think, in 43. And then they, one or the other left, and Leon played lead for a while, and Jimmy went back to Texas, and then Jimmy came back, and
then they both came to Texas.
Yeah, then they both came back and started the Short Brothers. And I think, and there was Buddy and Tommy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Little brother.
Was Butterball the next?
Butterball was next, right?
They were on KXYZ in Houston, where I was.
Yeah.
I got to meet them.
And then Billy Burke.
Billy's after Butterball. Right.
Yeah, Billy was the next one that stayed. I mean, there might have been one that that played a little while, but in between.
Your dad made all those guys household names.
Yes, he
by
did.
The way, he would say, "Oh, come in."
But he was the first one to call names out on records, and he loved doing that. He loved the guys, and they were a big part of his show. I mean, and he wanted to make sure they got the credit for it, and so he started calling their names out when they took a course. But he was never jealous of anybody in his band outshining him. He didn't mind that at all, as he proved with Jack Green and Cal Smith, and and of course he had the Wilburns with him for a while, and Skeeter worked some dates with him, George Jones, Stonewall Jackson, and he was always pushing them. And he, like Roy, I think, understood that the bigger they became, the bigger he became.
Johnny.
No, I don't even think it was that, because I can relate to this. Like, he was just confident in himself. He accepted life as it was. He loved other people. He had compassion for them. He was a very strong-minded, strong-willed individual. He understood it. He just understood people, like as we saw in the documentary. But I think that it's missing the point here. He could push these other people just because he was confident in who he was. And I get that. Like, I can relate to that. Let's put it that way.
You had a story.
Yeah. I don't have many, but but I have one. Ernest. Yeah, many I can tell. But Ernest. One time, I was hanging around the streets and it was snowing, and Buddy Emmons took me on to meet him. I always wanted to meet him, and I had met him, but I mean, I wanted to sit and talk with him. And they was getting ready to go on tour, and I didn't have anywhere to stay. You know, I was at that stage in my life, and evidently, Buddy had told him that because we got on. He said, I talked to him a while, and I was, you know, and he said, well, it's about time to leave. He said, you working? Asked me if I was working. I said, no. He said, you are now. He was going on like 10 days out in Texas, and it was snowing here in Nashville, and I had nowhere to, you know, I was in that place where I was, you know. He took me on the road.
Wow.
Wound up giving me a suit. I didn't have nothing to wear, so he gave me one of his old suits and took it to the cleaners, and I had it cut down the first date we got in Texas. And it was so there was 2 pockets in the back. That's how much I had to take up. But and I still got a picture of me in that suit. And he let me go out and I opened his show for him for 10 days.
Wow.
And he fed me, and at the end of the tour gave me some money.
Wow.
So that's the kind of guy he was.
Jack, talk about Ernest, because you started out as the drummer in Ernest Tubb's
This is
band.
great, Ronnie.
Well, you know, we just the other night we were telling road stories about E.T. and so many people have been influenced by Ernest and also helped by Ernest. So many people like Stonewall Jackson and all the guys that he took on the road. He would always take other people out and give them part of his money and give them motel rooms, a place to go and a ride. And like you said, he even gave him his clothes sometimes. But Ernest was probably the most important instrument on the Grand Ole Opry. It kept it going and give new people a chance to be heard. Cal Smith and myself and many other people are examples of that. And but he was the kindest, most giving man I've ever met in my life. And he knew how to pick a good song, and he knew what the folks liked. And
Yeah.
one night we were sitting on the bus in Detroit, Michigan. It was an afternoon. This family came up and said, Ernest, we just wanted to say hello. We'd like to go see your show, but we don't have the money. So he went around to the front and bought 8 tickets for the whole family to come in and see the show. And he was just that kind of guy. He always wanted to help so many people. And he carried Linda Flanagan on the bus and Skeeter Davis and many other people to give them chances to be heard. And he's probably the most important figure, one individual in this whole music industry called Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow.
Bill,
There you
I'd like
go.
to tell this story. We was up in Illinois with Ernest one day, and Ernest would never walk away from a fan. He would stand and talk and sign autographs till dawn. It didn't matter. This woman come up, and she had a baby a couple years before, and she had named it after Ernest Tubb. And so I went on and done my show, and the guys, the troubadours backed me, and they come back and they said, Ernest, you better go back there and get dressed because it's time to go on the show, time for your part of the show. And this woman just wouldn't walk away. She just wouldn't leave him alone. And he kept saying, honey, I've got to go change clothes. It was nice talking to you. He was so gracious toward her. So finally he said, excuse me, I have to go get ready for the show. She said, well, if that's the way you feel about it, I'll just change this baby's name. He said, lady, I don't care if you call that baby Grandpa Jones. I've got to get ready for the show.
Yeah, Bill, you know, he was so great to all of us that was in the business. 1966, that year, and we had the disc jockey convention, you know, in October, right? That's what. So I had 2 records out that year. That was Girl on the Billboard, Doodle Doo Doo Doo,
Yeah.
and Bell to Southern Belle, Doo 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 Doo
Yep.
Doo Doo Doo. Right? So me and him and Justin was standing back at the old trailer or whatever that was. We had wheels on it anyway. They pulled in there for a stage down here at this auditorium. and we all had 30 seconds. Remember, you got to do one verse or a chorus of your hit song. And I said, man, I don't know what to do. And I stand by Ernest, and he said, son, just walk up there and go do whatever you do and walk off.
Bill.
I'll swear he did. I went up there and I went, folks, I'd like to do a medley of my hits. Do, and walked off, and the whole place stood up.
You know, Ernest was a dear friend of mine, and we joked with each other a lot. But I remember one time when we had No Help Wanted out, and it was doing so good, and we played this show, and I think we were on to it twice. And as I walked back on the stage, he said, "It's a dang good thing you can jump, girl. You can't sing."
He told me something similar to that one night. We'd been on the show, and our part of the show had gone over pretty good. And I walked off, and Ernest was standing in the wings. He put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Anderson, you sell nothing better than anybody I've ever seen."
You sell nothing.
Hey, Jack, you were saying what a compassionate, kind man Ernest Tubb was. He kicked you off the bus one night.
Yeah.
The other Ernest.
You and Cal Smith, right?
Yeah, Cal and I both got off the same night.
What had you done?
By request.
By request. Yeah. No, and also there's something great come out of that. Ernest had those times. I don't know. It was certain cities we'd go to that he had to get in the bottle. I don't know whether it was bad memories or whatever it was, but we could tell on it. We went to Washington D.C. He was on one, and this particular night we had 3 days to do. And the first night, the Troubadours did their first set, and we extended it a little bit and took a break. And then we went back and did another set, and extended that one a little bit and took a break, and went back and did another set. And so Jack Drake said, "Well, boys, it's over. Let's go back home." So we got in the bus going back to the house, and Cal Smith had had an altercation with Ernest on the bus before we pulled out. I never did know what it was about because I was loading my drums up. But I heard Cal say, "Son, you don't slap me. I ain't gonna go for that." And so he got in the car with somebody else and went to the airport. And so we were riding down through Virginia, and Ernest come up and sat down beside me and on the outside seat where I couldn't get out. And he said, "Son, I want to talk to you about your problems." And I did have a lot of problems. I had wife problems, I had money problems, and I had kid problems and everything else. But being on the road 300 days a year and trying to support a family back home and put kids through school is a little tough. And so he kind of rubbed me the wrong way that night, and I said, "Ernest, I can handle my problems, but you got one you can't handle." And he said, "Well, when we get back to Nashville, you no longer work for Ernest Tubb." I said, "Well, I don't have to get back to Nashville. I can get off here." He said, "Stop the bus." So I got off the bus, and it was a 2-lane highway down through Virginia, and I started walking. I still had on my rhinestone suit.
Oh,
The brown ones
no.
with the red in it, and the bell bottoms and the white boots and all that.
Oh, my
And you see that
God,
walking
what
down
a
through the
sight.
hills of Virginia. Anyway, the bus kept running along beside me. You know, Johnny Wiggins kept saying, "Get back on, Jack. It's all right. Get back on." I said, "No, I'm through." And so they kept telling me to get back on. Well, I found out later they had a $100 bet with Ernest that I would not get back on. And he bet him $100 that I would. Well, I didn't know about that. But anyway, I got to the next town. I walked to the next town, which was about 18 or 19 miles. And there was a little all-night
God.
diner there. They called it Blue something diner. And so I went in there and asked the lady, I said, "Is there a bus goes by here?" She said, "Yeah, it comes by at 6 o'clock in the morning." I said, "Good. If you don't mind, I'll just drink coffee till they get here." So, and it was about midnight then. So I waited, and the bus finally pulled up, and I got up there and asked the guy how much it was to Nashville, and he said $25. And I said, "I've only got 15." I said, "Can you get me to Knoxville?" And about that time, somebody slapped me in the back of the head and said, "I'll loan you $10. It was Cal. He's got on the bus back in D.C. So we made our plans all the way back to Nashville. We talked about what we was going to do. No way would we ever go back.
All right. You can see why country music is all about stories, because each of these folks tells such good stories. Like just the way he developed that whole thing and then waited to the end to say it was Cal. They're brilliant storytellers, all of them. Gene Shepherd's story, all of them with Baby Grandpa Jones. Like they're not just good stories; they're told really well, like spontaneously told really well. That is what shows up in their songs too.
To Ernest, we was going to go out on our own and all that, and we swore to each other that we wouldn't go back. Well, we got to Nashville. He called us and said, "Come down," and we told him we wasn't going to go back. Anyway, he said, "Well, just come down. We'll talk about it. Do the Opry with me, and we'll talk about it." So, okay, we went down and we did the Opry, and we never did talk about it. We stayed 3 more years. Well, the greatest thing that came out of it is Ernest told us he'd never take another drop. And he told me years and years later that on the way home from the Opry one night, he stopped and bought a 6-pack on the way home. But he never opened it. So he won. And all the things that went through to bring that story true, and me and Cal got out on our own, and we stayed a little bit while longer, but he helped both of us start our careers, and he encouraged us all the way through, and made sure that the Opry took care of us, and all that. And but the most important thing that came out of it, he said, "Boys, if you'll come back, I'll never take another drop." And so that was the best thing that ever happened out of all that.
Yeah. Skeeter, you've got dozens of Ernest Tubb stories, I'm sure.
Well, it goes right along with that, because this was right before that, and I was on the road with him, and the bus broke, and so we had to get out and get in cars.
Yeah.
So it was Johnny Johnson and Billy Johnny Johnson and Jack Drake. Excuse me, and then in the other car it was Billy Bird and me and Ernest, because they had the big bass, that had to go in the car too.
Doghouse.
And there we were on this highway, and Ernest was drinking, and again, like the Bill Carlisle thing with that, I was always so frightened for that side, not ever having drank and everything. So anyway, I was getting really nervous in the back, and so Billy could see that I was nervous, and so because Ernest wanted to drive. He wanted to drive all of a sudden. Uh-oh. He was so aggravated, I guess, because the bus broke, and everywhere we had to get in cars and get to the show on time and everything. So he was getting anxious trying to drive, but he had been drinking, so I was getting real alarmed in the back. So Billy kind of gave me a motion that he was going to stop and for me to get out. So Billy pulled over, and we both got out. And E.T. just got over and just started driving like you wouldn't believe it. And I said, well, what are we going to do? There we were on the highway up in Canada, And
wow.
I never wore high heels after that. I used to wear high heels around all the time. I never wore high heels since that day. That's why now you girls know I'm always wearing my little flat shoes, But anyway, we there we were, and I kept saying, I started crying and praying, and God keep him safe, and I didn't know where I wanted God to turn him around or send them boys back. I didn't know what to pray for, and main thing was for safety. Anyway. Billy said, well, Skeeter, they'll come back after us. I said, how will they know he left us? He said, because he'll pass them. Driving like that, he'll pass them. And that is what happened. And then that night we got there, and it was all the times I worked with Ernest. It was the only time that he'd had too much to drink. And so they had decided that they would tell the people that he was sick, because truly he was. And so we did the show without him. So I told them I was going to get a Greyhound bus and go back home to Dry Ridge, Kentucky, and I wasn't going to sing anymore. I didn't want any more of this business because I loved him. I thought he was the best, and I just was so hurt. And so he came to the room the next day with Jack Drake and Billy Bird, and he told me then, he said, I've got to do something about this drinking. He said, my little girl told me that, Daddy, you're not nice when you drink that old Schlitz. That's not a very good commercial for that beer company, but I don't do beer commercials. So anyway, he said that to me, Daddy. And that's when he was starting to stop that. And I don't know, I've always felt it's really hard for me to not say something when anybody brings up Ernest Tubb.
Well, Ernest is responsible for me being in the music business. when I was growing up over in western North Carolina. About 2 miles from our farm was a service station and general store, and they put in a jukebox. Well, one of those Wurlitzers played the 78s, and all the bubbles going around. I said, boy, we've hit the big time now. And out on the farm, when I'd be working in the fields, I could tell when a record was playing. You could hear the music sort of wafting through the air. But you could understand every word Ernest Tubb record. Every word. And I thought to myself, now there's something unique about that. Why can I understand him and I can't understand the others? So I went out and bought his songbook and his guitar instruction book and discovered after about 3 months that I wasn't cut out for this. So I gave that up. But when I really got into the music business, I said, I hope I can tell him someday what he meant to me. Because I don't think the man had any idea the impact he had on the world. And, you know, there are many great and talented artists that come along over the years, but there are just only a handful of true originals that are not influenced by anybody. They create their own thing, and he was one. So
I think Dwight Yoakam's
I finally got
that
to meet him, and I'm no wicked. I call him Ernest, my lord. So I walked up and I said, Mr. Tubb, my name's Fred Foster. He said, I know who you are. Then I didn't know what to say, because the fact that he knew who I was just blew me away. And I said, I want to tell you, you're responsible for me being in the music business. And I told him. He said, well, tell me how. And I told him. And he said, well, bless your heart. He said, just pass it on. And I've tried to do that. But that set the philosophy of my whole record company. I wanted originals. I wanted nobody to sound like them. I wanted them readily identifiable. And I always insisted they enunciate so you could understand the words.
Well, I love that part about the enunciation, because I've commented on some songs along the way that, like, you can really understand that person. But here's the thing, like Dwight Yoakam, I don't understand half of what he's saying, and I love to hear him sing. So it is different for each artist, but the ability to understand some folks, like Johnny Cash, you can understand when he sing talks. So I guess it's easier in that regard, but there are others who sing talk and it's like, wait, what was that word? But I can, I get it. Like, you want to know what they're saying, but I love that he delved into it. Like, he's like, why can I understand his words, but no one else from the Wurlitzer, from the jukebox, basically. And that's just a great story. Well, he got into the business, but not on the music side. It was music, but he was on the production side. He produced Roy Orbison. And I don't understand that end of the business. Just, little tidbits here and there I've picked up. But the vignettes and the stories and, the human component, the human interest side of this thing for me, too, is that they're saying this in front of E.T., Ernest's son, who himself is an old, he can handle this stuff. He knows about his father's drinking and all that stuff. But they're telling these stories. Skeeter Davis telling her story, and Jack Green, and then about Cal Smith and all. He got off the bus, and they're just very funny things. But they all still loved him, even when they had fights with him, even when they were concerned about him. There was that love there, which speaks to his heart, because that's what the people saw in Ernest. His heart, his ability. It wasn't just that he helped them; it was him as a man, and that just bleeds through everything they say. So, funRonni, that is absolutely beautiful. This is right in my wheel. This kind of thing, I love hearing this stuff. It just gives such depth of insight straight from humans. It isn't sort of like, I don't know, some research work. It's personal, So, there it is. All right, guys, that goes in the documentary playlist, and you can thank funRonni from upstate New York for that one. Have a great day, folks. See you on another video, and keep rocking the country.
So finally he said, excuse me, I have to go get ready for the show. She said, well, if that's the way you feel about it, I'll just change this baby's name. He said, lady, I don't care if you call that baby Grandpa Jones. I've got to get ready for the show.